Centered breathing, relaxed centered awareness. Hip circles, knees bent, lower back flat. Another way. Breathe in. Imagine and feel that pressure, that ball of air. And move that ball of air to that leading point. Almost like your body's rolling around that ball of air. Like you move that ball of air, that fullness, the body slips off of it. That gives an extra stretch to the tissues and activates the fascia. And then the other way, send that ball of air the other way. Okay, and on the ball of the foot, leg you're standing on, knee is bent, and roll that knee in a big circle. So you're activating all the joints from the hip on down. So the foot, ankle, knee, hip, all are being addressed. And the rest of the body is very relaxed and loose, so it's moving with that movement as well. And then the other way. Release the abdomen. And to the other side. Take a moment, make sure that standing leg is bent. Feel what's happening for the joints. Other way. Okay. Bend, again, those knees are bent, lower back is flat. Now apply that same activity with that ball of air. Send that ball of air to that side. Stretching from inside. It opens things up from the inside out. Ball of air on the side. Okay. Hips or feet shoulder width apart, knees bent. So the weight's in the center here. Most basic form of arm swings, releasing those shoulders, releasing abdomen. Again, lower back is flat. And chance to work hanging out, just hanging. Weight is settling, drifting down. Wider, toes out, knees out, adding a weight shift. Press the foot into the ground, send you the other way. Consciously releasing those shoulder joints. Especially when we're in activity and we're moving, lower back will tend to be closed, tight. We spend all this time standing stationary to work the alignment, open things up. And typically the second we start to go into movements, all that seizes up again. We don't notice it's seized up, or most people don't notice it's seized up because they're always seized up. So standing eventually will give you that distinction and that contrast. So, oh, that's tight and shortened. very different feeling than what I work at when I do standing. So then we become alerted that we need to change that. So all the same things we do in standing. Another reason why standing work is so primary, because we want to bring all those alignment principles and qualities into movement. And then it becomes clearer and clearer, more obvious when we lose those alignments and principles when we are in movement, because we've ingrained them more and more in our awareness in our body in stationary standing. So as soon as we go into action, this tends to seize up. So feel the lower back, feel the yow, hang out. So just notice when things like that happen when we start to move, because they will happen. Just like shoulders tend to pull in. Maybe we're starting to get some nice open shoulders, just letting the weight of the arms pull the shoulders open. Maybe even when we're doing the most basic version, those arms were like loose ropes, very, very nice. They're not firing at all. But as soon as we get into more action, I notice as soon as I go into this longer stance, shifting weight, I notice stuff starting to happen. So the Ting is developing, that's good. And so then we have to use the E, the intention, to release it. Otherwise, we're just going back into, we're not changing, we're not transforming. So all that stuff we do in standing is so when we do movement, when we do our Tai Chi set, do the form, we catch all the things that are going awry because we spent that time getting that sense, the feeling, the body alignment. So we're hyper alert when we lose it. So, but we won't have that hyper alertness if we don't develop the Ting or don't develop that inner awareness that we are working on in the standing. So in particular, the shifting weight and turning right away, kind of pulling in, a bracing, a holding. So use the E, intention, to release it. No doubt it's the same with the abdomen, right? Maybe we're pretty okay. Here, you start doing more movement. Notice what's happening here. It's no doubt happening, tightening, holding. So consciously release the abdomen, consciously hang the tailbone to release the lower back. So be diligent with those principles and qualities. And again, standing is a foundation for all those principles and qualities and alignments. So in fact, I'll phrase it this way. Notice how much your shoulders are tight. Because to some degree they are. Some degree I feel it myself. To some degree, there's a pulling or a holding in. So see if you can acknowledge that. Sense some level of holding, pulling in the shoulders. And then intend to release it, open and release it. And if you can't get a sense of releasing it, make the motion smaller and softer. Go back to just hanging the arms until you get that more relaxed, released, natural quality again. And you might need to stay at that very slow, small, soft level to keep it. Notice what we tend to lose when we go into the alternate hip turn. So for example, again, the shoulders and abdomen are always something we have to check and recheck. One thing I notice when I go into this slightly different shape and movement is I'm noticing changes and things that are happening in the upper back and neck. So notice what parts of your body start to hold or tighten, or what parts of your body where it becomes more obvious that there's holding. Has always been holding, but now this movement is touching those parts of the body like the other movements haven't touched them yet. So notice any tightness, holding, and see if you can, using your intention, your conscious will, to release and open that area. And if not, slow down, make the movement smaller, go back to the smaller previous version of it. Again, check in with the abdomen. again, as this tightened and shortened, the hips, we still want the hip cage hanging, And to truly hang the hip cage, takes a lot of strength in the legs. So if you don't have a lot of really good strength and stamina in the legs, you're probably not hanging the hips, not at all. Can't hang the hips unless there's really a good amount of strength and stamina in the legs. And if you know you don't have that strength in the legs, you know that you're not hanging the hips. And you're not hanging out in general from the strength. You're not hanging out. Can't happen. So we have to build that strength and stamina in the legs. So and we can always be building that with our Tai Chi and all the things that we do. For example, even while I'm working on Song, releasing, softening, working on Ting, noticing and sensing what isn't released. All the while I can be working on developing my legs by bending my knees a bit more, spending more time on one leg by going slower. The only time when I don't want to do that is when I'm seizing up because I'm getting tired, because then I'm working against all the cultivating, all the culturing of my body. I'm going against that if I'm just shirking in and pulling in, my leg is shaking, holding on because I'm pushing the boundary of my strength and stamina. So that's okay when you're working purely for developing strength. You want to push it a little bit. You want to push that envelope to develop strength and stamina. But specifically, arm swings aren't about that. It's about releasing and opening. I can bring in some strength building up until that point where I start to get distracted by the discomfort or the lack of ability to really hang out and relax. Let me know if you have any comments or questions about these things, if I'm not being clear or if brings something up in your mind. Let's see what happens when we do vertical arm swings. What tightens? What pulls in? What holds on? So you're tinging, going inside, developing the mind-body connection, developing that inner awareness and sensitivity. So notice what's happening. Notice what's releasing or what you can release. And notice what is immediately doing normal stuff. Solar plexus, abdomen. To what degree are the shoulders pulling in because of this movement? How about the lower back? Can you hang and open the lower back more? What about the neck alignment and quality of the muscles in the neck? What's happened there? And gradually winding down, letting the weight sink through the upright body structure. Okay. So I thought we'd springboard off what was happening last class, talking about standing. So let's spend some more time with standing. And again, let me know if you have any comments or questions. So give you a moment to checklist. So feet are about hip width apart, parallel. Hang out. Ting through the body. Let gravity take the weight, the arms and hands, pull the shoulders straight down. Consciously release the abdomen. So one specific I'd like to just touch upon. Want to make sure, of course, the joints are open. One specific area to address are the shoulder joints. So we don't want the arms flat here, tight against the body. And the shoulder joints will tend to be closed if we have the hands like this. So we want to have the palms facing back, basically. That rotates the shoulder joints more open rather than being closed. If I exaggerate, closed. So I want to rotate rotate to open up the shoulder joints. So at first, do it mechanically. You rotate the palms so they're facing behind you and let the arms hang from there. And then eventually you don't have to have the palms facing completely 180 degrees behind, but they are rotated towards that direction. What we don't want is this, because then the arms are hanging flat and closed. So rotate, muscularly rotate the arms, the palms are facing directly behind, and then just relax and hang the arms. One little notation there is I want to make sure that I'm not rolling the shoulders forward when I rotate the palms behind. So I don't want to, if I exaggerate, I don't want to, okay, I'm going to rotate my palms to face back. I don't want that to curve forward or roll forward. Keep the shoulders set straight down on the side, on the bisection line, right down that vertical central line. So we don't want the shoulders to roll forward as I turn the palms. So they stay set right down the side. So be conscious of where the shoulders are. So the hands are turned slightly to the rear. Now, again, I talked already today a fair bit about this area of the lower back. It tends to be tight and foreshortened. So lots of different ways that we have to address that. You know, sometimes we'll say hang the hips. Sometimes we'll say point the tailbone to the ground. Those are all different phraseologies to get to the same place. Again, most people are not really hanging the hips. And part of it is because this isn't, they're not used to having this released and open. They're used to being seized. And they certainly don't have the strength here to really do that, to really allow this to open. So this action here, and it's totally not only okay, but necessary to do it mechanically at first. Here. Most people are here, rotated this way, to hang the hips. So people are maybe bending their knees and thinking they're hanging the hips or pointing the tailbone, but this hasn't really released. So almost everybody, okay, to be honest, everybody, when I see, look here, or feel here, is it still really tight, really holding on? So physically, mechanically, then we have to exaggerate that more. And it's not really exaggerating, it's getting to where we want it really. But we have to do it mechanically, kind of hold it there mechanically, muscularly at first. But eventually you want that to, just that's where you fall into. Everything is open and released and long, soft and long. So the muscles become longer, softer, like melted rubber, instead of really, you know, what happens to old rubber? Cracked and brittle. That's most people's body. You want the rubber to be fresh and new again, soft, hanging. So that's why this becomes virtually straight, hangs, but most people are maybe bending their knees because they know you're supposed to do that. And okay, to point the tailbone, hang the hips. Is this still held? So slightly different angle to which we can attack this or approach this is, instead of thinking of bending the knees, think of bending the quad or sitting from the quad. So here, angle this crease. This is how you sit. You bend the quad, and that's why the knees bend. Bend the quad, and let's do this over and over again. Coming up, and again, on purpose, being quite up, to contrast. And then,
so we're wanting that crease to deepen?
Yes.
In the sitting? Okay.
Yes.
Sorry, you're all in black, so I'm not entirely sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So think of the sitting comes because we're sitting into the quad. bending the quad. Think of the lower back lengthening, straightening, because we're sinking into the quad. Yeah, let's compare that over and over again. Sit. And then stay there a bit longer and see if you can let this totally hang and release. Totally release and hang. That means we have to have the strength here, for sure. So that may be another reason why you have to re-enter it, and not stay there. That's okay if you don't have the strength and stamina. You want to build that, but right now you don't want to be distracted by the difficulty and lack of ability to hang out there. So keep moving into it. Release the abdomen. Okay. Now let's approach it in another way. So the other day, not long ago, we talked about a little bit specifically about the chest. It's not puffed out, it's not caved in, it's neutral or straight line. Talked about the ease with which the drop of water can flow down, not slow down, going over that curvature, not sped up, going through that curvature, but just dropping straight down naturally with gravity. So we talked about that. So another way to approach that. The chest pushes the lower back out. The dropping chest, the sinking chest, not a caving chest, not a puffed out chest, a sinking chest. So imagine the tissues, the muscles of the chest, the tissues melt down, run down. So now instead of that drop of water we talked about the other day, imagine all the tissues, muscles of the chest melt down, pour down, and pour down into the lower back. Pour down into the lower back, or the sinking chest literally physically pushes the lower back out. It's a yin-yang pairing. We'll try that repeatedly. I have my chest, my sinking chest, my dropping chest, pushing my lower back out or filling my lower back. So my chest empties in order to fill my lower back. That bends my knees for me, hangs my hips and tailbone for me. So yeah, try that repeatedly.
Yeah, that has a nice feeling of sort of like actually notice it, the hinge of where my skull sits on the spine shifts, and then I feel that right through the tailbone. Like sort of this lowering, which just illustrates to me how my normal is holding all of that up.
Right.
Yeah.
Excellent. So that's really good information that's being revealed there. It's really potent and crucial information that's coming out of it. And Ting, your awareness is clear, giving you all that good information. So we want to contrast that over and over again, and then we want to hang out there. We want to keep it. So the emptying chest feels the lower back. And again, rotating the palm slightly to the rear. So standing is indispensable for the study and development of alignment, releasing, developing inner awareness, and relaxing and sinking the chi. Those are the main things that we get from standing work and the main studies that come out of the standing work. Proper alignment, releasing, letting go. Noticing what's happening in the body, developing that internal awareness, and thinking the chi. Okay, you can rock out that a little bit, and then you can move around with the joints a little bit. Again, normally you should be able to hang out there for 15, 20 minutes, but just to give a little bit of a break there, and we'll go into that again.
And so is it a sign you've sunk your chi if a cat comes?
Yeah, actually today, for some reason, the cats have been featured prominently in several of the Zoom classes today. Earlier, we had another cat just rolling around here beside me. She's in heat, that one's in heat, so it's clear why she's doing it, but she was just, the whole class just rolling around, trying to get me to engage, but
yeah,
strong, stay focused. So, how are we doing with this so far? So let's take this fairly deeply. So just take a moment to get those details. And so we'll go through a little process here of developing the Ting and developing the song. So developing our ability to get inside our body with our awareness, our sensitivity and awareness, and to be able to release and open. So going to the feet with our awareness. And tighten the feet. So we're going to use the process of contrasting. Tighten the feet, squish them up, or just tighten them, toes and feet, and then release them. And do that, 3 or 4 times. And then really getting into that releasing. Notice what happens. They can release a little bit more each time. Tighten and then release. And then your ankles. Tighten your ankles and then release them. Tighten your ankles and then release them. Tighten and then release. And then your lower legs, your calves and shins. Tighten and squeeze, release. So even the tightening part is important. That's actually also developing the mind-body connection, developing that deep internal awareness. And in the knees, tighten, release, tighten, release, tighten. And really notice the difference between those two activities. And then thighs. And really notice the difference. And then the whole hip girdle, buttocks, hips, the whole area, tighten, release. And then the abdomen, hold, tighten, and then enjoy the release. And then lower back. So now on purpose, we're foreshortening, tightening, just so that we have a chance to release. Tighten and release. And really be into both phases, the tightening and the releasing. And then the mid-back. Upper back. This whole process really develops sensitivity of your internal awareness. Developing your ability to saturate your body with the mind. And chest, consciously tightening, consciously releasing. Shoulders and upper arms, biceps, triceps, deltoids. Kind of have fun with it. Tensing, and then you get to relax again. Seeing how much you can get into both phases and notice the difference between them. Lower arms, forearms, wrist, hands and fingers. Really enjoy the whole process of tightening just so you can release. And neck. Scalp. So your ears should probably move when you do that, when you tighten. Forehead and face and jaw. Tighten, squeeze, release. Really enjoy it. Get into it. Now your whole body at once. Tighten everything, freeze everything, hold everything, and then release. Do that a few times. Really get into it. It's an exploration. It's a study. So really get into it. Play with it. How much can you notice? How much can you get into it? Now, maintaining an upright structure with your skeleton, let everything just relax and pour down through that upright structure. Taking a couple deep breaths. On the exhale, release more and more and more. Letting all the tissues pour down. Skeletal structure is very bright, sharp, upright. All the tissues can just melt and pour down. Now, move your mind again to the feet. We're not going to do the physical tightening at all. We're just going to use the mind and the breath. Breathe into the feet and toes, breathe out through the feet and toes. Breathe in to the feet, breathe out through the feet. And then the ankles. Each out breath is an active releasing breath. So as you breathe out, from the ankles down, you release. Breathe in, filling the ankles. Breathe out, releasing down, from the ankles down. Now lower legs and knees. Breathe in, fill the knees and the whole lower leg and feet. Breathe in and release everything down from the knees down. Breathe in, inflate, fill, lower legs, feet, knees. Breathe out, pour everything down from the knees down to the feet. Hips, tighten the hips, hold the hips. On the out breath, release everything down through the entire length of the legs. Breathe in, inflate everything. Breathe out, release everything. Breathe in, tighten the whole hip area. Fill it with breath, like almost like an overfilled balloon. Very, very, very taut balloon, filled, 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 and then release. Breathe in, taut, filled, 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 and then release, drain everything down into the feet, just below the feet. And then specifically the abdomen, breathe in, make that taut, and then release, pour it down, pour it down, pour it down. Lower back, breathe in, hold it. Not muscularly, just with the breath, filling it with breath. And then release, send the breath through that area, washing down through that area, through the legs, hips, feet. So you're just doing it with your awareness, your intention, your breath. Not trying to squeeze muscularly at all. Mid-back, fill it with your breath. Wash through it, drain it on the out-breath. Release, release, release on each out-breath. Upper back, fill it, inflate it, so you can really pour and empty it out. Shoulders down through the whole arms, including your hands, fingers. Breathe in, fill it, right down to your fingertips. Everything's inflated, and then release. Pour down through the shoulders, arms, hands, fingers, right through the fingertips. And into the neck, just using the mind, intention, and the breath. Filling, breathing in, emptying, releasing, breathing out. And then as you breathe out, pour it all the way down through the vessel, right to the feet, to just below the feet. And the scalp. Entire face area. Entire body as a whole. Breathe in, entire body fills tautly. And breathe out, pour everything down. But your peripherals don't collapse. You keep the peripheral edge. So you empty, pour out. It's like you pour out of a cup. The cup doesn't deflate and crunch down. So breathe in, fill tautly. When you breathe out, body is an empty vessel, empty structure through which everything pours. Breathe in, fill. Breathe out, pour everything down. Tissues wash down. But the skeletal structure keeps open, peripherals keep open. Filling, emptying, pouring everything down, sinking the chi through that open structure. Okay. Gently rock out.